Hi, everybody. We're going to get this webinar kicked off. So I'd like to welcome you all to the I hit my mute button there. So I wanted to welcome you all to the webinar for FP 10.1, which is the launch of our new dashboard, as well as a bunch of other little changes that we made in the system. We are going to be recording this webinar, so if you do have other people on your team that would like to watch the video, I'll be posting it later on today, and you'll find that on the help site. Couple of things that I wanted to just cover before we get going is that in some instances, depending on your browser, you may find a little bit of weirdness in certain pages within the system, just because of the massiveness, I guess, of the update that we did yesterday. So we do ask everyone to clear their browser cache. If you clear your browser cache, you should get rid of anything that kind of looks weird or off kilter on the site. The other thing I wanted to mention is please post your questions in the GoToWebinar questions area, and we will be answering the questions throughout the presentation. So what we're going to be doing is today, Mark Wilson is going to be the main presenter. He's going to be showing you all of the changes that we've got in here. And Emma Lauder and I will be monitoring the webinar and answering questions as we go through. So we will be posting any answers as we go, and if we have time at the end, we'll address some of those questions. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Mark Wilson, and he's going to take you through the new system.
Thanks, Tate. Thank you very much for the intro. Thank you, everybody, for joining into the webinar today. I'm really excited to see how many people that we do have that have joined. I know that we have participants from all across North America, and I'm sure that we do have some that are in other places in the world as well. So, thank you all very much for your participation. And I wanted to thank Emma Lauder as well for answering questions as we go along, and of course Tate, who just did the introduction. Before we jump in, I also want to just thank our development team here at Function Point. They've been working very hard on many of the upgrades that you're going to see today. There's more coming, of course, but this is something they have delivered above and beyond what our expectations were. So I'm really excited to show this to you today. I have had an agenda up on the screen that you've been able to see for the last few minutes. And what I'm going to be doing today is taking you through first an overview of the dashboard upgrades. So I'm going to be talking a bit about the improved user interface, some of the changes that have been made to different modules within the dashboard, and also in other areas of the system that I'm going to be touching on pretty quickly. From there, we're going to take a look at the actual customization abilities with the dashboard itself. So we're going to look at how you can customize your dashboard, what information is available there, what kind of detail you can show, and then how you're going to be able to switch between different dashboards and all the fun new features that we put in. From there, we're going to be taking a look at the improvements to the permission section. Anybody who is familiar with Function Point's permissions section, I'm sure you're going to be very, very pleased with what I have to show you today. It's a significant improvement to how you create and apply permission sets, and it is going to be a big time saver for clients of ours that, for Function Point users that are doing this often, for new staff or changing existing staff. There's also a couple other items to mention around just minor changes throughout the system, some terminology adjustments that have been made that I'm going to touch on quickly. And the last thing I'm going to be reviewing today is an overview of the improvements that we've done recently to the training and help site and how to access those. We do have a goal of keeping this webinar roughly 30 minutes, but I can tell you that it's most likely going to be going over that. So I am going to try to keep this short and sweet, but most likely we'll go over that 30-minute time just to let you know.
Hey,
So
Mark.
let's go ahead and
just wanted to jump in. I've had a couple of people saying that it's a little bit tough to hear you, so I'm just hoping you can turn your volume up as loud as possible, and hopefully we can address that.
Okay, thanks, Tate. I'll turn the volume up here and I'll try to speak a bit louder so everybody can hear me. If I happen to start being, getting quieter again, please let Tate and Emma know through the GoToWebinar questions, and I'll try to speak up a bit. Great, so perfect. So again, thank you everybody for joining. What we're looking at right now is a classic view of Function Point's dashboard, probably pretty familiar to many of you as far as the information that you're seeing here. but you'll notice that there are some adjustments and improvements to the user interface. So there are some adjustments and some improvements around, the color and the shading, as well as the shapes of the buttons, just improving the function point interface, bringing it into, more of a modern look and feel, and you'll see this throughout the system. Now, a couple things that I want to touch on the minor changes to some of the items in the classic dashboard before we get into the actual customization features. Firstly, you'll notice the timesheet window is slightly different. There's actually a pretty neat improvement that's happened here. The timesheet has typically had two options. You're entering a duration of time, or you're entering a start and finish time. And something that we've had a lot of requests for is the ability to have a time clock that is not specific to a start and finish time. In other words, if I select start here, it's simply adding up amount of time. It's not putting in a start time of 10:37 a.m. Pacific time. It's simply adding in a time clock. I can also pause this. Something that we've had many, many requests for is the ability to pause a timer, which is something that you now can do. And I can come back to that at any time and select start, and the timer will start. Once the timer is over 1 minute, selecting stop is going to fill in the duration value automatically, so you don't have to enter that manually. The rest of the timesheet is really the same, selecting the job and the service and the task, entering in your description, and submitting your time. There is also still the option of opening up the timesheet window. However, you will notice that it is not available in the timesheet insert on the dashboard. That is now available from the timesheet module in the main navigation bar. This is where we can open up a timesheet window. And what this allows you to do is it allows you to have multiple timers running at the same time, without having to use the start and stop option. So it's not being specific to time of day, it's just a timer that's going, and again, you can stop and pause that and restart it at any time with multiple timers running. And now you'll notice that the item that I have that is over 1 minute will then fill in my duration with a value. The jobs module, or the jobs list here on our dashboard, there's a minor adjustment to this as well, and this also does affect other parts of the dashboard that are list views. So lists of items that are showing up on your dashboard. Previously, the scroll bar would simply go forever. If you had 100 jobs on your dashboard, then you would scroll through 100 jobs. There's been an adjustment. You'll notice that we now have multiple pages. You'll notice that I'm seeing 1 to 25 of a total of 27 items, and I'm able to jump through the different pages. Now, the value that you're seeing here, how many items you see in a list view on your dashboard on a single page, is actually a system preference. So I'm just going to touch on where that is really quickly. In the admin section here, under System Setup, under System Preferences, under the tab called Search, you'll notice that we have a new item called Items per Insert View. And this controls how many items you're going to see in lists on your dashboard. So at this time, we're going to take a look at some of the neat new improvements that have come to being able to customize the dashboard, creating different templates, and switching back and forth between those different dashboards to see different information. So you'll notice up at the top here, what once was the home icon has now been changed to the word dashboard. Hovering over the word dashboard will show you an item that says Customize Dashboards. Selecting that opens up a new window, and this is where we were able to create and customize the dashboards that we want to see. It's pretty simple and easy to use this, but there are a couple things to mention that I want to make sure that people understand about how to work with it. So you'll notice it walks you through steps. Step 1, 2, 3, and 4. The first step is to select a layout, and you'll notice that I have Classic. Classic being the standard dashboard that the function point system has always had. You then have the ability to create a new dashboard. You're typically going to want to create a new dashboard, but you can customize existing ones as well. So once you've selected to create a new dashboard, it's going to then ask you to fill in the details. Now those details can be populated with either a custom name that you enter or a template. Now the template dropdown is currently populated with dashboard templates that we've put together just as examples that we are made available for our clients to use. They are dashboard setups that we have found to be useful and ones that we recommend taking a look at and using yourselves. So first I'm going to start with selecting a template. I'm going to talk about how that works and what the different layouts are and what the information is that's going into them. Then we're going to create our own custom dashboard. So let's select this item here called current work. And again, this is an example that we've put together for you. Selecting the template is going to fill in the dashboard name. Now you can change that if you'd like, but I'd recommend keeping it the same name as the template. You'll notice that the layout has been selected for us. Now the layout is talking about the layout of the inserts on your dashboard. So when you look at the classic, you'll notice that the classic layout here matches the typical dashboard setup that you're used to. You have a long column on the left-hand side that represents timesheets. You have a small box in the middle for jobs, a small box on the right for pin notes, and you have a width longer box on the bottom for tasks and to-dos. So selecting the current work template, you'll notice has a slightly different layout. You'll notice then step 4 allows us to choose the tile content. Notice that this setup here mirrors what you have in the layout selection. So where we have that long column on the left, that's what we have on the left here. Within each section, it then allows you to select what you're wanting to be shown in those different areas. So because we selected a template, it's then loading up with information automatically. Calendar, tasks and to-dos, recently viewed items, and alerts. So if I save that, I now have a new dashboard that I'm able to select from. And in fact, I changed that to override my original. Let's actually put in our classic really quickly here so we can take a look at both. So we now have 2 dashboards to choose from. I'm going to close down this window. We're going to come back to it in a second for looking at creating our own custom dashboard. But let's take a look at what we've done. So you'll notice now that when I hover over the dashboards item up at the top, I now still have the ability to customize my dashboards, but I also have different dashboards to select from. There's the classic, which is the one that you're used to, and then there is the current work dashboard, and that's the one that I just created. You'll notice now it's showing different information. We have a calendar view on the left, we have tasks and to-dos up at the top, we have recently viewed items, and we have alerts. And one thing I want to touch on with the recently viewed items, this is actually a neat new feature that's been dropped into the dashboard. This is basically a list of details pages that you have viewed recently, and they are organized and sorted based on the order in which you have viewed them. So typically, you are able to sort items by their columns. Looking at the tasks and to-dos section, for example, if I want these tasks sorted by due date, I would select the due date column, which will sort the tasks by the due date column. However, the recent viewed items list, again, is organizing these items in the order in which you last viewed them. So there isn't an ability to sort the list. It is already sorted, again, based on the order in which you viewed them. So let's take a look at creating our own custom dashboard. We're going to go back to the dashboard item up at the top, select to Customize Dashboards. First step is we're going to select to create a new dashboard. We're going to give it a name. Let's just call it, for lack of better imagination, let's call it New Dashboard Example. So our new dashboard example, we're then going to choose a layout. So I can scroll through this. Notice that I'm able to scroll across and select from different layouts that are available. There's a lot of different options that are available here. Any combination of the different styles of inserts is available to create your own custom dashboard. So for example, farthest to the right, we have what we call the 6-pack. 6-pack is 6 small boxes with the ability to choose different items within them. So let's say our new dashboard example is going to be the 6-pack. We then choose what the content is within each square of the 6-pack. So perhaps on the top left, I want a list of my jobs. In the middle, I want pin notes. On the right, I want my tasks and to-dos. On the bottom left, I want, let's say, recent viewed items. In the middle, on the bottom, I want alerts. And lastly, let's put in timesheets on the bottom right. So what we've done here, just to recap, is we selected to create a new dashboard. We gave it a name. We selected a layout. We then chose what content we want in the boxes within that layout. I'm going to click Save and Close. Creates my dashboard. and it's now available to be selected up at the top. So let's select our new dashboard example. And you'll notice now that the custom dashboard that we just created is now showing on screen. So we have the list of jobs up on the left, pin notes in the middle, tasks and to-dos up at the top right, timesheets in the bottom right, alerts in the middle on the bottom, and recently viewed items on the bottom left. So, that's really the basics of putting together a new dashboard. Now, again, the system that, your system of function point is going to come with a variety of templates. So you're going to be able to go in and select from those templates, customize them to be, to your liking. But I recommend, viewing them. We have put quite a bit of thought into what these templates are. Just as a personal note, my favorite, I believe, is, let's see if we have an item here. There it is. Recent items and dates. This is actually my favorite structure. Let's put that in the new dashboard here. And this touches on the ability to add your dashboard to your calendar. So you'll notice now I have a new dashboard I can select, recent items and dates. This is my favorite layout. I find it to be very effective. What it allows you to see is recently viewed items on the left. Recently viewed items is more useful than it may seem. What it allows you to do is quickly switch back and forth between details pages that you've looked at without having to use the main navigation bar and hovering over view. And because you were able to see a large list of items here, it may be larger than the quick view lists that you have within the main navigation bar. And then on the right side, you'll notice that we have the calendar. So as opposed to having to open up the calendar in a separate window, it can now be available on your dashboard. Of course, you have all the same filters and same options that you had before. And I might want to see quite a bit more information than we're seeing a second ago. And it allows us to view the calendar information from the dashboard. So that concludes the overview of the dashboard. Again, I recommend playing around with those setups. Really experiment with it. Create really as many different dashboards as you need, and you'll find it's really beneficial to be able to jump around back and forth between those without having to navigate throughout the system to see the information you need or take the actions that you want to take. A lot of those things can now be done from the dashboard. So the next thing that we're going to be taking a look at is we're going to be taking a look at the new permission structure in the system. So the permissions, as many of you who work with this know, is available in the admin section. And you'll notice here that we have an area under rate and staff management that is new. We now have an item that says manage permission sets. Selecting manage permission sets brings us into the new permission structure, the new page where we're able to create permission sets and load them onto multiple staff. It's quite large, so it might take just a second here. There we are. So this may look somewhat familiar, but it has been improved quite a bit. So again, it's laid out in steps. Choosing a permission set, adding or editing the permission set, and then adding or removing staff from that permission set. Now, in the very top, in the list here, you are going to see a list of existing permission sets in your system. Whatever the permission sets were in your function point system will be available here. Selecting a permission set is then going to load the permissions with the appropriate values that you have in that set. So again, we'll see that load up here in just a second. So you'll notice that we have the permission area. We then have all of the individual permissions beneath that. We have a description of what the area is. And then on the right, we have whether or not an individual has the permission for that item. If you see a check mark, it means that they have every single permission within that item. If you see a little line, it means that they have some permissions and not others. Clicking on the arrow will show the permissions and then whether or not the individual has the ability to access those. Now, previously, we were needing to build this out one staff person at a time. Now, we could load that permission set per staff person, but again, we had to do it one at a time, and if you made an adjustment to that set, it would not apply to the other staff people that belong to it. So that's really what's been adjusted here. Whereas now, when we select a permission set, on the far right, you'll notice that we can then add or remove staff from that permission set. So it allows us to go through and select individuals, for example, that we want to have the account executive permission structure. select perhaps our account executives. Maybe we have a studio technician that we want to have that permission structure as well. Submit that, and those individuals now have those permission sets. Creating a new permission set, it's pretty straightforward. It's a bit easier than before. Again, you go through the steps that are numbered. So the first step is to choose to create a new permission set. I'm going to touch on this item here in just a second. But to create a new permission set, and we're going to call this, let's call this a project manager permission set. Here we are, project manager. So we're going to create a project manager permission set. Now we may go through here and select the individual modules that we want people to access. Perhaps we want them to be able to access only some of the modules in the system. Notice that there's now better descriptions as to what these mean. View, for example, is whether or not an individual can view certain areas of the system. So we might go through and select the different areas and the different permissions that a project manager should have in the system. And I'm just going to select just a bunch of examples here. Once we then created our permission set, we can then load it onto different staff. So the project managers are going to get this permission set, perhaps one other studio technician again, perhaps Quinn here as an example. Submit that, and we've now submitted multiple staff with the same permission set. Well, looks like we're getting a bit of a hiccup there. Valid permissions for managing permission sets. Most likely I doubled up on the permissions on an individual. We're still kind of ironing out the kinks on that one, so we'll take a look at it. I apologize for getting that error on the webinar there, but we'll take a look. But again, fundamentally, it's similar to what we're doing in the alerts. So if you are familiar with establishing alert sets for staff, then this will probably be pretty familiar to you as well. But again, we're giving it a name, selecting the permissions, and then establishing which staff we want to have them. So that covers the permissions item. There was a few other things to touch on. There's a couple other minor changes in the system that I wanted to touch on as well. One that is pretty important, and that is around the term phase. In function points, many of you are probably familiar with the terms phases and services. I've noticed here that notice I no longer have the ability to add estimate because I've gone in and of course given not selected myself to have full permissions in the system here. But let's go ahead and give that to myself. Let's call it administrator. I may have to refresh your Tater. Emma, if you see that I'm doing anything that's catching your eye, please let me know. So, it looks as though what I may have done is I may actually have hooped myself with the permissions.
You took the permissions away to give yourself the permissions.
So I'm going to have to fix that for a second here. So apologize for the delay, but if you bear with me for just a bit, then I'll be able to get that back for us. But I'm actually just going to switch my window here. Okay. So that's actually something to touch on. If you are playing with the permission sets and you're experimenting with it, you'll want to make sure that you don't accidentally not, give yourself the ability to switch them back, which it seems as though I've done here for myself. So let's go ahead and call this admin. Select all items. And we will then apply that to myself. There we are. And let's just log back in as myself just to stay consistent. There was one other item actually in the permissions that I wanted to touch on, and that is an improvement to the ability to create client portal permissions. So if you are using the FP portal or the client portal, The permission sets for the portal is something that you can manage from this section of the admin as well. So the way that we're managing that is by selecting for client portal users. So if I want to create a new permission set, perhaps a permission set that's specific to clients, I'd select to create new, select for client portal users. Now what's going to happen when I hit select here is that the permission set itself is going to change. You'll notice it's shrunken down significantly. It's shrunken down to the permissions that are available for clients in the client portal. You'll notice now that on the right side, the contacts have changed from our internal staff to a list of all contacts sorted by company that already have access to the client portal. So if you have given access to a client or any kind of third party to have access to the client portal, they will then appear on this list. If you are wanting to give somebody permissions to the portal, then you would of course navigate to that individual's contact details page and then choose to give them a client portal login. So once you've given them a client portal login, they will then be available to be selected here to have permissions in the client portal, and it works just like before. So you have the ability to, let's call this full access client, for example. You have the ability to create a permission set, establish what they can and cannot do throughout the portal. So just like before with the internal permissions, except it's significantly less robust. But we would select that, choose the individuals that we want to have that permission set, submit that, and those individuals will now have those permissions. So let's take a look at what I was talking about a second ago. Before we touched on this creation of the client portal permission sets, I was talking briefly about the change to the terminology around phases and services. Now, this is an important item to mention, but it is a pretty minor change. It does not affect any way that you use function point, but it does go in line more with how our clients view the structure of the system, and it tends to make a bit more sense. So to give you an example here, I'm going to go ahead and select to add an estimate. I'm sure many of you are familiar with the add estimate screen in function point. And the main change that I'm talking about here is the term phase has been replaced with the term service groups. So before, when we were looking at the scope of work structure in an estimate, we were looking at a structure called phase and service. It's a very minor change. It does not change or affect the way that you use function point in any way. But the term phase, again, representing these items in the orange here, has been changed to service groups. So it's just something to keep in mind. A lot of our clients, both new and old, many consider phase, the word phase, to represent time, to represent a certain portion of work within a job that is related to where the job is in its life cycle. And that really does make a bit more sense. And it's been getting people a bit confused. And in order to make it a little bit less confusing, we have changed that again from phase to service group. So I'm going to go back to my dashboard, and let's go back to our classic dashboard. So, a few other items to mention before we end the webinar here is around the help site. Two of our trainers, Leanne Steer and Emma Lauder, who is on the call today, have launched some pretty significant enhancements to the help and training site. You'll notice up at the top here in what we call our super nav, or our super navigation, we have a new item called help. Now this actually used to be called community. It is now called help, and it now has different sub options beneath it. So you have the ability to access the training site. The training site has undergone a significant upgrade and improvement. It is a lot easier to navigate. It's giving you information in a few main specific areas. So an overview of the training process, and then an area for prime users, an area for rolling out the system to your team. Selecting any of these areas will bring you into all the documentation related to those areas. I do highly recommend that you review the training site. There's a lot of new information here. The documents are being updated, every day, and new screenshots are being put in. And you'll notice on the right side, there's now a column that allows you to quickly navigate between topics in the training site. It's much easier to navigate. It's much easier to find what you're looking for. There's much better search functionality. And again, we're constantly updating the training site with new information, new documentation on a daily basis. You also have the ability to access the community forum right from your system as well. So this is something that many of you may be familiar with as well. It's the community forum where you'll find a wealth of information on Function Point in different areas. Again, with good search functionality here and organized into different sections around who you are and what you do. And then, of course, the third option is the ability to contact support. So the ability to contact support right away, right from your system. It will ask you to log in. So you do need to create a login to the Function Point Community Help site. It does not match the login to your system. If you are brought to this page and you do not have a login, you'll notice up at the top right, you have the ability to sign up if you don't already have a login. It's not the same as your login to Function Point. It is a separate system for submitting support tickets. So I just wanted to mention that as well. So I'm not sure if Tate or Emma, if you have any questions that have gathered up that you'd like to be answered, visually. If there's any other items that I may have missed as we're going through that you want to mention that you'd like me to cover.
What I'm going to do is I've just launched a poll for everybody, so just to kind of get first impressions of the work that we've done with this upgrade. Of course, we will be doing minor tweaks over the next week or so as well. So I'm going to keep that poll up for a minute or so, and then I'm going to get you guys to all rate the webinar as well to see how much value it was today. In terms of questions, Emma, was there anything that you wanted to mention?
Yeah, Mark, would you be able to just, in regards to timesheets, just show people that the little clock icons that they're still there and that that's still a way that people can populate their timesheet at the task or job level?
Oh, I understand. Okay, yeah, for sure. So you're speaking towards these items here?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, definitely. So the timesheet window is still working in a very similar way as before. If I'm wanting to put time against a task, for example, I have a sketching a roughs task here. It's for my annual report job.
Hey,
Doing
hey,
the 20-second.
sorry, Mark. I launched the poll over top of you, so
Okay,
give us 30 seconds, and then you can show it.
no problem.
And I just noticed on the poll that the I hate it or I don't like the new look didn't get populated on the poll. So if somebody doesn't like it and doesn't want to say I love it or it's good, then you can post a thing in the questions area. I didn't mean to leave that out. Sorry.
You're limiting it to only positive answers, are you, Tate?
Yeah.
Do you
Oops.
love it a lot, or do you only love it a little? Those are the two options for today.
Anyway, so I'm going to close that poll out, and Mark, now you can answer the question.
Sounds good. Thanks, Tate. So we had a question around the timer. The timers are still there, and that actually touches on something that I should be mentioning as well around the icons. But you'll notice here in our tasks and to-dos, if I want to put a timesheet against one of my tasks, my sketching roughs task, for example here, clicking on the timer icon beside the task will populate your timesheet with the information that you need. So it will populate the job. In this case, because I've selected a task, it will populate the service and the task as well. I could then enter a description, say, did this and did that. Hopefully people are putting in better descriptions with their timesheets, but put that as an example. Now we can either select start, and again, it's going to, start counting the clock, or of course we can come in here and simply drop in a duration, perhaps 2.5 hours, click submit. It adds to my daily total and also to the actuals against that task. Now it works in a similar way with the jobs. So from the jobs list here, if I were to select a job, let's take a look at our fall signage as an example here. Clicking on the timer icon beside the job populates our timesheet with the job information. Because I did not select a task, it does not populate with the service. So I would then need to select the service I'm working on, perhaps research here. If there's a task for me for that service and that job, it will be available here. If not, it's not a required field. I don't need to select it. Enter my description, enter my time, again, either with the timer or simply dropping in a duration. and submit. And the time that, entering a timesheet in the same way as before with regards to start and finish is still available. So if you happen to be using a start and finish that is time specific, so 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. for example, then that is still available to you. But the regular duration now has a timer, which is very useful. Now there's a few other items actually that I wanted to mention around the user interface. The icons in Function Point have been improved slightly. You'll notice this in list views. If I navigate to a list view, for example, let's just do a job find here for active perhaps. What you'll notice now is again some user interface improvements around the shading and the color and the shape of the different columns and so on. But then you'll notice that the icons up at the top have been improved, and we are going to be launching some additional improvements to these items in the future as well. But getting rid of those little gray buttons was a goal of ours, and it's something that we've been able to accommodate. Gives it a more modern look and feel. And some of the more important buttons have been enlarged to take up more screen real estate because of the importance of the button there. Any other questions that have come up that you'd like me to answer visually here?
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind showing an option, if you can, that shows a layout that's going to give us the most screen real estate to jobs. Just had a question about, what would be the best view to show as many jobs as possible on the screen at once. And I don't know if we have a good layout that maybe puts jobs in a bigger tile, just to show that we can show quite a few more 25 or 27 that appear on the classic view.
Yeah, for sure. Let's take a look at that. And I don't have a dashboard view that is coming to mind immediately for that. So it'll be interesting to see. Well, let's take a look at the different layouts and choose one that we think would be best. The way that we're going to do that is, again, going back into Customize Dashboards. Let's choose to create a new dashboard. So again, select to create a new dashboard. We're going to call this let's call it a large jobs list. So we're going to create a dashboard called large jobs list. Scroll through the layouts. So let's take a look here. Now, really, the way that these layouts are organized is, the one pack, as I just decided to call it, on the far left, and then the six pack on the far right. So the farther we go right, the smaller the boxes are getting, and the more of them we're getting on screen. The farther we go to the left, the larger the boxes are, and the more that we're getting on screen. So I mean, so the largest option would be to really just choose one box taking up the entire dashboard and select it to have your jobs. Now, and let's take a look at that before we go back to it and make some additional changes. But you'll notice now that we're having, the entire screen being filled up with jobs. Now, because we have more screen real estate, more data is now being shown to us. So a second ago, when we were looking at a smaller jobs list, or in the classic view, we had the job name, we had the project, we had the company, and we had the number. We didn't have any other information. Now we have the status, and I am extremely pleased to show that the statuses in this list view have been changed from the little red and green icons that both represent multiple statuses to now the word, the actual word of the status there. Whatever your status terms are in your system will be shown. And we then have other information, so the date, the estimated dollar value, actual dollar value, and how much we've invoiced. Now, the permission structure in Function Point is going to affect what people are able to see on their dashboard. If somebody is not able to see dollar values in Function Point, selecting this dashboard view is not going to show them dollar values. It does take the permission structure into account, so you don't have to worry about people gaining access to information that they wouldn't otherwise see. But I mean, if you were to look at this and say, well, I also want something else, again, really simple. I mean, we go back to customizing the dashboard. Instead of creating a new dashboard, let's select the existing layout of large jobs list. Notice it's highlighted in yellow. That lets me know that whatever item on the left is highlighted in yellow, whatever I do here on the right is going to change that dashboard option. So our large jobs list, let's change this to have a different view. Let's give it 2 inserts or 2 tiles. We're then going to have jobs taking up the big portion on the left, and let's say tasks and to-dos on the right. Save that. Reload our dashboard. And you'll notice now that we have our jobs on the left, tasks and to-dos on the right. And again, the information that's showing in these has changed. The tasks and to-dos no longer has the screen real estate to show the estimated actual hours and the percentage complete. So all we're seeing is the title of the task and the status. Furthermore, the jobs list on the left no longer has the screen real estate to show you the estimated actual and invoice dollar amounts. Therefore, we're only seeing the job, company, project name, status, date, and whether or not it is part of your specific list.
Mark, can you show? I've had a few times this has come up already this morning. Can you show it? Currently, you've got your jobs list showing 25 in a list view. Can you show people, administrators, how they would go in and adjust their system to increase the amount of jobs that are showing?
Definitely, no problem. So the way that we're going to do that is going into the admin section under System Setup and System Preferences. Of course, you do need, again, to have access to this area via the permissions to be able to access this. But we're going to look under a tab called Search, and then we're going to adjust the items per insert view. So let's change this from 25 to, let's say, 100. Now, I only have 27 active jobs in my example system here. So when we go back to our dashboard, and you'll notice that clicking on the word dashboard brings you back to the most recent dashboard that you've looked at. Clicking on any of the templates will bring you, of course, to that template. But you'll notice now that on the bottom here, and it's still showing 125. Did I not submit that, Tate? Let's take another
I'm
look
not.
here. And it may be a
You
hiccup that we have there. It's a bit of a new item, so we may have to take a look at it. It may
just
not be loading up.
just refresh.
Just a force refresh.
Yeah.
Okay, let's take a look here. There we are. You'll notice now that we're seeing the full 27. So what I did there to accommodate that change, because the dashboard was already loaded up, Tate mentioned that I needed to refresh, so I just hit Control R, did a force refresh on the page, and you'll notice that I now have the full 27. So if I had 85 active jobs in the system, I'd be seeing 85 in the list. Other questions, Emma, that are still need to be addressed?
I'm just looking at the moment to see if we have anything that would be good. Hang on. Oh, this is a good one. After you make a template, are they able to be removed from the system or do they stay? I believe they stay, but you may know a bit more about me than that one.
That's a good question, and I'm not entirely sure. Let's take a look here and see if we can delete them. So let's, oh, yes, you can. So you'll notice here that's beside the template, there's a little X button here that'll represent deleting it. So if I wanted to delete our new dashboard example, I'd select the checkbox there. It's going to ask us, do you want to delete this? Yes, we do. Delete the template. Now the templates, actually, the templates themselves.
The templates themselves are they're in the system, but you can delete your layout so you won't see anything. You won't see them in the drop down.
Okay, so you wouldn't see them there, but they are still available in the system.
Yeah, they'll still always be available in that drop down under next to templates.
Okay. One item I wanted to touch on, and we kind of mentioned this a little bit as was happening, but earlier we had a bit of a hiccup around the permission structure. It's giving us an error there, and what actually had happened, and this is a 100% mistake on my part, but what had actually happened was as I was going through the permission structure here, I attempted to submit a permission structure to myself that did not have the ability to do what I was doing. Therefore, by selecting myself and taking away the ability or the permission to access this area of the system, the system's saying, well, you just took away your access for yourself to be able to be here. That's why it was giving me an error there. So, just something to keep in mind. If you happen to be, say, adjusting permissions to entire roles, you'll want to make sure that you are not a part of that change that you're making. You'll want to make sure that if you have the ability to see this page, taking away your ability to see this page is going to produce an error for you. Any other questions, Emma?
No, I think we're good unless anyone wants to furiously type one here that they'd like Mark to address. Oh, but then we've got the quick poll. Let's see
So
here.
what?
Uh,
So what I've done is I've just launched a Rate Today's webinar poll. So if you guys can take a second to answer that, let us know how we did today. We will be staying online, so if you have any other questions, please type them into GoToMeeting. Emma and I will be here for the next 10 to 15 minutes in case any questions come in. Another couple of things that I just wanted to mention is that on the help site, there are the developer notes, the technical notes about today's release. So if you want to know any details, please go there. I can maybe get Mark to show that after we've closed down the poll. So you can take a look at that. We've also got some screenshot training documents and stuff on that as well. So please take a look there. And then there's also a link in that area on how to clear your cache. So if you don't know how to clear your cache, you can click on that link and it'll tell you what to do dependent on which browser you're using. So anyways, I'd like to thank everyone very much and thank you, Mark, for taking us through this. And hopefully it was valuable for everyone.
Thank you, Tate, and thank everybody as well for joining in today. I'll probably stay on for a few minutes as well, just in case any questions do come up, and perhaps Tate, if you'd like me to go to that developer, the
Yeah,
information on the support site.
sure, that would be great.
So let's take a look at that. You'll probably need to direct me there, but would it be under
Just,
community forum?
yeah, actually, if you go into community forum, probably the quickest way to do is just click the home button. It is under news and announcements right there, actually, under current clients, but it's also right here right underneath the search button. So if you click on the 10.1 release notes, it's got all of your release notes. At the very top, there is a link to clear your cache, and then there's also links to new documentation. So I've made it available both under new items in the community help section as well as on the homepage of the support site.
Thank you to Emma and Leanne for producing the documentation. It's something that you'll see a lot more of on the help and support site for different areas of the system. It's really easy to navigate through, and I think that they're explained really well. So thank you for producing those. Any other questions that have come in, Emma, that you'd like me to answer?
Just taking a look here. Hang tight. We have had a couple of people say that they're having issues with changing that list view option in the admin section, that it's not actually seeming to influence their dashboard. So that's something I've said to a couple of people that I'll look at once the call ends. But did you manage to get it to work after you hit submit, or was it still giving you grief there?
Yeah, so that's a good point. So I experienced the same thing. What I found was that if you go into the admin section and you make an adjustment to the amount of items that you're going to see in that list. So again, we're going to system setup, system preferences. We're then going to the search tab, and we're choosing the amount of items per insert view. Once you enter the amount of items per insert view and you submit that, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to force refresh your browser. Now you can do that either by going up to the top here in your browser and selecting refresh. You can also do that by, on your keyboard, hitting Control R. And then that should adjust the amount of items in the list view. So it's something where you just, once you make that change, you do need to then refresh your browser, and you'll notice that I now have more than the 25 than in the insert than I originally had.
Hey, Mark. Mark, I've got one if you wouldn't mind showing, just while we've got you here, a question about being able to change the status of jobs without having to go into each individual job. Can you just show the editable list from the job find for me, please?
Yeah, let's take a look at that. Let's see also if it's available from the dashboard. I don't believe that it is, but let's take a look here. I believe that they're stagnant from here. But if you want to be able to produce a list of jobs and then edit or customize the status of multiple jobs without having to go into their details pages, the easiest way to do that is to do a job find. You can of course enter any parameters into the find that you wish. But the most important thing here is that you select the list to be editable. So select this to be an editable list. In this case, I'm just going to select Find Active. So again, editable list, I'm going to click Find Active as my example. And then the list that you get will then, of course, be editable because you selected that checkbox. So that means that you can either select the status to adjust that, and then, of course, this will be adjusted on your dashboard view if you happen to have a list of jobs in your new customized dashboard. You can also put in a comment so people can come here and comment on the status of a job, and then adjust what the status may be for the list without having to go through to the details pages for each job.
Okay, all right, thank you very much, Mark. So we're going to shut down the audio and video portion of the call. But again, like I said, we will stay online and answer any questions. This will all be posted, as long as we don't have any technical issues with our recording, it'll all be posted on the support site before the end of the day today. So again, I'd like to thank you all very much and have a great day.